Lovely. So we are recording. Fantastic. Yep. So I'm Laura. Lovely to see you all here. Thank you so much for joining me on this lovely Saturday afternoon. And yeah, I teach quite a kind of functional type of yoga. I'm really interested in helping us move better on the mat, so we move better off the mat. So I'm quite active. I do lots of outdoor sports, but whether you're active or not, yoga can really support that daily movement. So everything we do in life can be kind of enhanced by yoga. So I teach quite a bit of strength and stability as well as flexibility, so kind of moving away from the idea that we are just here to get more flexible, and it's more of a kind of all-round approach to our joints, thinking about keeping them stable as we move, activating our core. So when we're talking about core, we're not talking about the abs at the front, but the kind of deep core muscles, the psoas, that helps us in every action we do. So whether that's just standing or sitting or keeping us upright, whatever we do, we're using those deep core muscles. So see how you get on, especially if you're new to yoga. Some of the moves might feel a bit challenging. So look after yourself, take a rest whenever you need to. If something doesn't feel right in your body, listen to that, okay? If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right for you. Take a step back, maybe take a rest. Child's pose, tabletop, mountain pose, so standing, they're all good rest poses throughout. So yeah, this is your practice. I'll guide you through it, but there's no obligation to do what I'm doing. Equally, if you're used to practicing yoga and you're practicing every day, some of this might not go as advanced as you want to go. So feel free to make this your practice, take the poses a bit further, and have fun with it. This is your practice today. Okay, so yeah, I've said before, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat box. We are going to be looking at hips today, not just opening the hips, but actually kind of the whole hip joint. All right, so our hips are one of the most, probably the most important joint in our body. It's the biggest joint, so you probably all know it's a ball and socket joint. So in the base of the pelvis, we have a bit of a kind of cup shape, and that is exactly as you're doing there. I don't know, what's your first name? Aspires, yeah, that's the one. So yeah, you have the base of your hip socket here, that's called the acetabulum, and you have your femur, your leg bone, your thigh bone, and it fits into that acetabulum and moves around. So that is what creates this ball and socket joint. We're all different. Okay, so some of us are going to have a really deep acetabulum socket, and our femur head's going to be really far up into our pelvis. For others, it's going to be much more shallow. So we're going to naturally have different ranges of movement. So appreciate that in your body, okay? It might not be, you might not be able to do the same as everyone else, and that's part of the beauty of being human. We're all different, aren't we? So be patient with your body, tune into it, listen to it, see what feels good for you and what doesn't. Because at the end of the day, the yoga is here to support us. We're not trying to force ourselves into something that's not right for us. So let me just double check what I have written down here. So yeah, so we have kind of, as well as the bones in our hips, we obviously have lots of muscles, ligaments, tendons that support that joint and help it move. So forgive me if I'm telling you something you already know, but there's 20 different muscles that kind of intersect, cross over, interact with the hip. So, you know, that's a lot of different muscles going on just to get our movement. But when it comes to actually moving our hips, there's actually kind of only really 7 ways we can move the hips, and we're going to do a bit of all of those 7 today. So if you want to jump up, we'll do this together. We'll just experiment with what those 7 different ways are so we can get to know our body. We might find that some of them feel easy for us, others might feel a bit more challenging. So we'll start, can do this on both legs, but we'll start with hip flexion, which basically just means we're drawing the knee up towards the body. So this is hip flexion. We're shortening the distance between our knee and our torso. The opposite to that is hip extension. So when we straighten our leg or put the foot behind us, that's extension. So we're extending the front of our body. And so for hip flexion, when we're bending the leg, we use our hip flexors. So they're the muscles in the kind of front of the hip that draw our body in, contract, and we stretch out the glutes. When we're extending the leg, we're actually using the glutes, the bum muscles, to shorten the distance between the back of our legs and the back of our body, and we're opening up the front of our hip. So when we think about all these movements, really good to try and think about the two different muscles working, and we might be using one to actually stretch the other. And if we kind of engage the glutes to stretch the hips, we are going to reduce the risk of injury in the front of the hip or overstretching, because we're actually using our own body's strength to do that stretching for us. So that's something you'll see throughout today. So if you just want to have a go at that on both legs, just see maybe one feels easier for you than the other. We do a lot of both of these in yoga. Almost every pose has a bit of both in. So good to be aware of that. The next one we'll probably see a lot of in yoga is rotational movement. So we have external rotation. So that is basically when the knee goes out to the side away from our body and we're turning that joint externally. Internal rotation is, as you can imagine, the opposite. So crossing the knee across our body, turning the foot out to the side. This is something we don't do as much of in yoga, but we will do a bit of today. So just moving between those two. When we talk about hip opening, often what people are talking about is that external rotation, moving the hip outside away from our body. But as important as external rotation is, so are all the other movements of the hip. So we'll be doing some of that today. So just notice how that feels for you. Maybe one way feels easier than the other. Maybe one side feels easier. My right side's always more open to external rotation than my left side. You might have something different. Just being aware of your body. The other types of movement, so we have abduction, which is when we're moving our leg away from our body. Think of aliens abducting your leg away from your body. So moving it out to the side, that's abduction. And then the opposite to abduction is adduction. So we're adding that leg back to the body, or maybe moving it across the body. So that's adduction. So we've got abduction out to the side and adduction across the body. Okay, lovely. So have a go at that on both sides. Again, they're things that we maybe don't always do in yoga, but we will be doing a bit of today. So just noticing how that feels in your body as well. Lovely. And then the final one, the final kind of movement of the hip is circumduction. So circumduction is a kind of a bit of everything. As the name suggests, it circles with your hip. So if you bend a knee and you just draw circles with your knee, that's kind of a bit of all of those movements put together, and that's possible in our shoulders and our hips because of this ball and socket motion. If like the elbows and the knees, they're hinge joints, so they're not designed for this circular movement. So this is, circumduction. We'll do a little bit of this today as well. So just again, noticing how that feels, maybe going one way and then going the other. And this is really just kind of a good way to strengthen all of those different muscles in the hip because you're using all of them. So that's kind of the different movements of the hip. You'll see we use some of them throughout today's class. That was something else I was going to say. Oh, yeah. So really important. Oh, I've seen that, Debbie. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Really important then when we are moving our hip is that we are just isolating that movement in the actual hip joint. So sometimes what we find is, for example, if we're lifting a leg in three-legged dog or even standing, we can end up tilting out to that side. So we're opening up as well. And that's actually just moving the pelvis. That's not, or moving the other hip. It's not actually isolating the movement in the hip we want to. So today, when we're going through the different poses, really try and focus on isolating that movement in just the hip socket, rather than bending your hips, your pelvis side to side, or twisting, which can be a temptation, especially if we've got a bit of weakness in this area. But actually isolating that movement in the joints helps keep those joints really active and reduces pressure on the lower back. So someone talked about wanting to strengthen muscles around the sacroiliac joint, which is kind of in the base here of our back, joins our pelvis joins our pelvis basically, different bones in there. And what we don't want to do is be twisting in our pelvis to compensate for movement in the hips, because that can put pressure on that joint, particularly in twists and things like that. So really try and take care of your body today and just really listen to it. So Debbie has just asked in the group chat that just said that her hips click when she rotates them, and is that normal? It is quite normal. Mine do the same. If it's not painful, it's completely fine. It's completely natural part of kind of our joints or hips. If it really starts to be quite painful, just dial back the movement a bit. So instead of maybe rotating all the way out to the side, just bring it a little bit closer in towards your body. So we can build that strength just like every other muscle in our body. We don't expect to, be doing handstands overnight, or most of us don't expect to be doing handstands overnight. It's the same with every muscle. We build that strength, that flexibility, that mobility slowly. And the more care we take, the better it is for our joints. So see how that feels, Debbie. If you feel any pain, just back off. That goes for everything throughout today as well, guys. If you feel any pain, back off that pose. Okay, bit of sensation's fine, but pain's not so good. So let me just double check. I think that's everything. Is there any questions that anyone has before we start moving? All right, lovely. So yeah, we'll start kind of on our mats on the backs. We will move around the mat a little bit. So depending what your setup is, I know it's always a bit awkward at home. You might want to have the camera in front of the long edge of the mat for some of today's session, because we'll be using kind of the front, the back, and the sides of the mat. You can also move it around, and we'll start on our backs. So we'll start by warming up the glutes, which are our bum muscles. And the reason we do that is because our glutes are one of the biggest stabilizing muscles in our body, really important for stabilizing the hip and the pelvis area. So we're going to warm up our glutes. They're also kind of modern day life doesn't help this, but we chronically underuse our glutes. So we do a lot of sitting, and we don't really need to use them when we're sitting. And what that also does is it shortens, sitting a lot shortens our hip flexors, but it doesn't actually strengthen them, because we're supported by whatever we're sitting on. So we're not using our own strength to bend the leg if we're sitting. We're just using the rest of the chair, or the support of the chair. So we'll start with a bit of bridge pose, a few different things like that, opening up the front, lengthening those hip flexors and engaging those glutes. And then after that, we'll move on to some all fours work. So being in tabletop or all fours is really good for building those foundations. And then after that, we'll go on to a few little flows. So just, yeah, enjoy it and see how you get on. All right, lovely, Amanda, thanks for letting me know. So have fun more than anything, and we'll make a start. So we will begin at the backs, or on our backs. if you want to take a glass of water or anything just before we start, please do, and likewise throughout the session, just do whatever you need to do, water or anything else. So once you're on your back, you can you have a few options how to start. You can start with your legs bent, knees up to the ceiling, and just pause here, or you can bring them out to the sides in a reclined bound angle pose, or you can extend them long for a Shavasana. So really this is about finding something that's comfortable for you. We'll spend a few minutes here, so just tuning in to your body and making sure that you are in a position that's comfortable for you for a few minutes. And when you're ready, just closing your eyes, drawing your attention inwards, and really noticing how your body, how your hips feel today. Noticing any areas of soreness or stiffness. Just breathing into those areas. And beginning to breathe into the rest of the body. Becoming a little more aware of your breath as you do. Slowing your breath down. Maybe using your nose. Really trying to breathe from the tummy, from the diaphragm. Feeling your tummy expand as you inhale and soften as you exhale. With every inhalation, just trying to fill your lungs a little more. With every exhalation, just letting go of any tension in your body. Just allowing each breath to draw your attention to this moment a little bit more. And we'll take a few breaths here all together, breathing in through the nose, trying to fill those lungs right to the very bottom of the lungs, all the way up to the top. And we'll just sigh everything out through the mouth, making some noise as you do, and just letting go of everything else as you do. Taking another deep breath in here through the nose, allowing that tummy to expand, the whole of the lungs to grow. And again, just sighing everything out through the mouth, letting your body soften as you do. One more deep breath in here. This time, trying to let that breath out through the nose, nice and slowly and with control. Maybe just beginning to activate your Ujjayi breath if you use that. And if you don't, beginning to just breathe through the nose completely. So every inhalation and every exhalation, always trying to breathe with the tummy through the nose. Really listening to the sound of that breath in your body. And your next inhalation, just opening the eyes, and exhaling, softening your hands down into the mat, palm facing down, either side of you. Draw our legs up now, bending at the knees, and knees towards the ceiling if they're not already. And as we inhale, we'll just lift our pelvis off the mat. It doesn't have to be very far off the mat. We're coming into a low bridge here, so this is really good for activating our glutes. As you can tell, it's kind of the opposite to sitting. We're opening up the front of the body. And I'll just hold this for a few breaths. So really trying to breathe nice and deeply. Keep that breath nice and slow and even. If you've got a block or a Tupperware box and you find this pose gets a bit much, you can just rest it underneath your pelvis at the back there to give you a bit of support. Just breathing nice and deeply, trying to keep that breath really long, bringing your awareness to your glutes, maybe even giving them a bit of a prod with your fingers to try and encourage them to wake up a little bit, drawing your inner thighs towards each other, really rooting through the whole of the feet, softening the face and the shoulders. One more breath here. And as you exhale, just slowly roll down to the mat, one vertebra at a time, and draw the knees in towards the chest, squeezing the knees in, trying to keep that tailbone flat on the mat. Take a deep breath in here, and then sighing it all out again. Releasing the feet back down to the mat, keeping a bit of space between your feet and your tailbone. We'll just bring our fingertips to the top of our pelvis, where these little pointy bits are, and just rest our hands on there. We'll just draw our attention to our center line next, trying to think about sending that tummy button down towards the ground and wrapping the outside edges of our body in towards that center line. Breathing nice and deeply. As we inhale, we'll just begin to lift that pelvis up off the mat again. Again into a low bridge, and again we'll hold this for a few breaths because the glutes take a bit of time to warm up. So trying to keep that center line active, wrapping those outside edges inwards and keeping those that pelvis, those pointy bits even. Just breathing here nice and deeply, holding this for a couple of breaths. Reminding your body that even as you work, you can keep that breath nice and slow and even. Again, maybe giving your glutes a bit of a prod if you need to. One more deep breath in here. And then exhaling, softening back down to the mat. Maybe hugging your knees in once more, keeping that pelvis glued, that tailbone glued to the mat, and just rocking side to side. And then releasing the feet back down to the mat again. We'll come into one more bridge just to really make sure those glutes are active. So taking a nice deep breath in here, knitting that center line together, and then lifting up through the pelvis. Again, trying to push through the whole of the feet evenly, really drawing that attention to those glutes, feeling a little bit of a stretch, a bit of an opening in the front of our hips. Maybe just drawing your attention back to your breath. Are you still breathing through the nose? And on your next exhalation, just lowering back down to the mat. Lovely. I'm going to warm up the rest of our core now, so our deep muscles. So we'll bring our fingers behind our head, interlace the fingers, and draw the elbows together. Now go as much as you want to here. You might find this quite a lot if you're new to yoga, so just take your time and we're not looking for a big movement. Okay, so just listen to your body. Take a nice deep breath in, squeeze those elbows together. And then as we exhale, we're just going to try and lift the shoulder blades up off the mat, or just the shoulders, squeezing that core together. If you feel like that's a bit much, just stay on the mat and just becoming aware of your core. Breathing in here, lowering back down to the mat nice and slowly. So we're going to do that a couple more times. So just listening to your body, go as far as you can. So inhaling at the bottom. And then as you exhale, squeezing that core together, lifting the shoulders off the mat. Again, it doesn't have to be a big movement. And just suspending the breath here for a moment. We'll see if we can draw the right elbow towards the left side of our body. And then as you inhale, come back to center and lower down to the mat. Exhale, lift up off the mat again, drawing those shoulders up. And draw the left elbow towards the right side of our body. Suspend the breath for a moment. And then inhale, come back to center and lower slowly back down to the mat. Take a deep breath in here. Just pause for a moment. We'll do that a couple more times. So on your next exhalation, lifting those shoulders up off the mat and drawing the right elbow towards the left side of the body. Inhaling, coming back to center and lowering down to the mat. Exhaling, lifting straight back up off the mat and left elbow towards right side of the body. Inhaling, coming back to center and lowering slowly back down to the mat. Once more, exhaling, lifting up, right elbow towards left side of the body. Inhaling, coming back to center and lowering down to the mat. Last time, exhaling, lifting up and drawing the left elbow towards the right side of the body. Inhaling, coming back to center, lowering down to the mat, and exhaling, releasing the hands. Good job. So again, you can either do this next one lying flat on the mat, keeping that core engagement that we've just worked on, or if you want a bit more of a challenge, you can exhale and lift up and just suspend the breath through this next exercise. So just doing what feels good for you. So taking a nice deep inhalation, and then as you exhale, lifting up if you want to with your shoulders, and then everybody lifting the left leg up off the mat, stacking that left hip over, left knee over the left hip. We'll just take a bit of external rotation here. So moving the knee out to the left, and then bringing it back to center. Inhaling, lowering the foot and the head if you've got the head lifted off the mat. Exhaling, lifting the other knee and the head and shoulders if you want to. Stacking that right knee over the right hip. And again, bringing some external rotation into this side. Inhaling, bringing it back to center and lowering down to the mat. We'll just do that a couple more times. So exhaling, lifting up, lifting that left side, opening up the left knee to the outside edge, bring it back to center, and then crossing it over our body for some internal rotation, sending the foot out to the side. Inhaling, coming back to center, exhaling, lowering the foot and the head. Exhaling, lifting the right foot and the shoulders if you want to. Suspending the breath and moving that right leg out to the side for some external rotation, back to center, and then bringing it across your body for some internal rotation. Bring it back to center and inhaling, releasing back down to the mat. Good job. Releasing the hands and drawing the knees in towards your body for a moment, just rocking side to side, just trying to soften, relax, and release. And then we'll release our, then we'll rock and roll up to our seated position. And you can take whatever seat you want to here, cross-legged or kneeling, whatever feels good for you, or even coming up onto a chair, if that's what you want to do. Finding some length through the spine, rolling those shoulders away from the ears. Just bringing the left hand down beside you or into the hip crease. Inhaling the right arm up and exhaling, reaching over towards the left side of your body with that with those right fingertips, opening up the right side. Breathing here for a moment. And then on your next exhalation, twisting to look towards your left and releasing both hands down to your left side and just releasing the head here. Hopefully you feel a bit of openness in the bottom right of your back. Breathing nice and deeply. Inhaling, walking the hands back to center and coming back up to a seated position. On your next inhalation, sweeping that left arm up overhead, bringing the right hand to the right hip crease. Exhaling over towards the right, reaching up and out through those left fingertips so we're not collapsing in the right side. Pausing here for a couple of breaths, trying to keep that breath nice and slow, keeping that core active so we're not collapsing. And then on your next exhalation, turning to look at your right, bringing both hands down to the right side of your body and just releasing over on this side. Relaxing the head, the neck, not keeping any tension here. Inhaling, walking the hands back to center and exhaling, coming back up to seated. Do that once more on each side. So if your legs are crossed, just uncrossing them and crossing them the other way. So we've got the same, we're doing both sides evenly. And then again, finding that length in the spine, bringing the left hand to the left hip, right arm up, exhaling over towards the left, opening up the right side body. On your next exhalation, releasing both hands down to the right and releasing the head, softening the shoulders, opening up the back. Inhaling, walking the hands back round to center and exhaling, coming back up to seated. The same on the other side. So inhaling that left arm up overhead, reaching up and exhaling over towards the right. Pausing here for a breath. And then on your next exhalation, bringing both hands down to the right, releasing the head, looking over, and just pausing for a moment, feeling that openness in the left side of the body. Inhaling, walking the hands back to center. This time exhaling, walking them out in front of you, coming into our tabletop pose. Taking a moment to really build these foundations, spreading the fingers, pressing through each fingertip. Inside of the elbows, facing the top of the mat, knees under hips or a little bit closer together. And trying to find that same core engagement that we had in the mat. So sending that tummy button up towards the spine and wrapping those ribs towards the center line. Looking up in front of you, so you're looking straight ahead, and then just lowering your gaze to the top of the mat to find that neutral spine and space in the back of the neck. Breathing nice and deeply here. Take a few rounds of cat-cow here. So as we inhale, we'll lift the crown of the head and the tailbone up towards the sky. And then as we exhale, we'll round the back, push the mat away from us, find cat pose. Just continuing in time to your own breath here, trying not to crunch the neck in cow pose. So we're looking for length in the spine in both poses. Just noticing that your pelvis is moving here, tilting either direction. One more breath here. And then on your next inhalation, coming back to that neutral spine, breathing nice and deeply, finding that length. And then on your next inhalation, we'll extend the left leg out long behind us. And it's up to you here if you want to keep the toes touching the mat or if you want to lift them off the ground, really using that left glute. What we really want to do here is keep that pelvis neutral so we're not opening up to the left at all, really softening that left hip down. And then again, up to you. You can make this a little bit more challenging by bringing the right arm out in front of you. Inhaling here, finding that length, that engagement. Exhaling, drawing knee and elbow underneath you, really rounding the back. Inhaling, finding that length. Exhaling, rounding the back underneath you. Once more, inhaling, really nice and long. And this time, exhaling, releasing the hand and the knee back into all fours. Do the same on the other side. So as we inhale, extending the right leg this time. And maybe the left arm as well. Maybe lifting those right toes, but really trying to keep that pelvis neutral. So we're using that right glute a lot to lift the leg. Exhaling, rounding the back, drawing the knee and elbow underneath you. Inhaling nice and long, finding that neutral spine. Exhaling, rounding the back underneath, bringing them underneath you. Inhaling nice and long. And then once more, exhaling underneath us. Inhaling nice and long. And exhaling all fours. Breathing here for a moment. And then we'll exhale. Come down onto our forearms. Bring our hands together in prayer or interlace the fingers to give us a bit of support. We'll just release the head in between the hands. Shake it out a bit here. So we don't want any tension in the neck. Really find space between the shoulder blades. So imagine you're finding a bit of cat pose here, rounding the back slightly, finding that space. And you can either stay here, or as you inhale, you can tuck the toes. And as you exhale, send your tailbone up into the air. Walk those feet in a little for a dolphin pose. You can bend the knees here if you need to. So we're really finding space in between the shoulders here, lifting up towards the ceiling with our tailbone. And then you've got choices here as well. So you can either come back to an all fours position for this, or you can inhale, lift that right leg up into the air and start doing some little circles with that right knee, Keeping that space between the shoulders. Don't forget to breathe. And just drawing those circles. Whichever way you're drawing the circles, start drawing them the opposite direction. Keeping that pelvis nice and neutral. That back nice and long. And then inhaling, extending that right leg behind you. And exhaling, releasing it to meet the left. We'll do the same on the other side. You can take a rest here for a moment if you need to. Or extend that left leg up behind you. Bend the knee, keep the pelvis nice and neutral. Start drawing little circles here. Again, you can always come into all fours if this gets a bit much. It's quite a workout, this one. And then whichever way you're going, start going the opposite direction, drawing those little circles, and really isolating that movement in the hip joint. Breathing nice and deeply still. Then inhaling, extending that left leg long. Exhaling, releasing it to meet the right. And then on your next exhalation, lowering the knees, sinking the tailbone back for a child's pose. Extending the arms out long in front of you. And breathing nice and deeply. Opening up the back body. And just noticing that hip flexion here. And your next inhalation, rolling forward into all fours. Tucking the toes. We'll exhale, tailbones up and back for downward facing dog. Bending your knees if you need to. Really trying to find that length in the spine rather than sending the heels to the ground. And lift through the tailbone. Keeping that core active. Walking out the feet. Maybe moving side to side if you want to. Breathing nice and deeply all the time. Again, remember that everything is optional here, so feel free to stay in all fours or child's pose here if that feels better for you. One more inhalation, finding a place of stillness here. And then as you exhale, rounding the back, tiptoeing the feet up towards the hands, folding over those legs and swaying side to side. Taking a ragdoll, just breathing nice and deeply, letting any tension out to the upper body. Inhaling, lifting the arms out beside you and up overhead, coming into standing, reaching up towards the ceiling, and then exhaling, mountain pose. All right, so we'll start with a couple of sun salutations with a few variations. So this is a good little sequence for warming us up. So finding that nice neutral spine, neutral pelvis here, lifting up through the crown of the head. As you inhale, just trying to find that extra bit of length. And then as you exhale, folding forward from the hips, really trying to find that flexion. So sending the tailbone back, bending the knees, keeping the spine long, and coming into a forward fold. I won't cue too much with the hands today. So if you would like to, do other things with your hands, that's absolutely fine. I'm pausing in this forward fold for a moment before inhaling, coming up halfway. So trying to find that halfway lift, that last point your back was nice and flat. Really noticing that flexion in your hip joints, bending those knees, keeping them soft, engaging that core. Exhaling, folding forward again. Stepping the left foot back behind you and dropping the knee. Trying to find two nice right angles in the front and the back leg for a low lunge. And coming up, hands to heart center. Pausing here for a moment, really trying to find the energy in this pose. So engaging that left glute, maybe giving it a prod, pushing down on the top of it, and seeing if you can send that or get that glute working back into your hand. Trying to send the energy through the back of that right heel. Really noticing that the more you engage your glute, the more of a stretch you feel in that left hip flexor. Pausing here for a breath. And then exhaling, folding over that front foot and stepping back into a plank or all fours or half plank to suit you. Engaging those glutes, finding that length in the spine, engaging the core. One more inhalation here. And then exhaling, dropping the knees and lowering all the way down onto your tummy. Inhaling, coming up into a cobra, really trying to use the back muscles to lift your head and torso and engaging those glutes still to protect the lower back. Exhaling, releasing back down to the mat. Inhaling, tucking the toes, and exhaling, downward facing dog. Pausing here for a few breaths. Again, walking out the heels if that feels good for you. Taking any other movements that you want to, or taking a rest in child's pose if that's what you want to do. And taking a nice deep inhalation, finding a little more length in the spine, a bit of stillness here. And then exhaling, trying to draw your tummy towards your thighs just a little bit more. On your next inhalation, lifting that left foot up behind you, toes pointing down to the ground, softening that left hip down. Exhaling, stepping the left foot up towards the left hand, helping it up with your hands if you need to. Dropping that right foot and inhaling, coming up into a low lunge. Again, trying to find that same activation here, really engaging that right glute, prodding it, seeing if you can send the energy back into your hand, drawing that left heel back to the back of the mat, finding that length in the spine, softness in the shoulders. Breathe, smile. Exhale, fold forward and step both feet together, finding that hinge in the hips again. Inhale up to standing, arms up overhead. Exhale, mountain pose. Okay. Inhaling again, finding that length through the spine, lifting the hands if you want to. Exhaling, folding forward from those hips, really trying to keep the spine long and trying to hinge from the hips, bending those knees, and then rounding the back into a forward fold. Pausing here for a breath. Then on your next inhalation, coming up halfway, really using the glutes, the thighs to lift your body, drawing that tummy up towards your spine and finding that length in your body here. Exhaling, folding all the way over. Inhaling, stepping the right foot back, dropping the knee, and coming up into a low lunge. Bringing your left hand to your left hip. On your next inhalation, extending that right arm up overhead and exhaling over towards the left side. Being careful not to collapse in that left side here, so really reaching up and out through those fingertips, still activating that right glute and the left heel to the back of the room. Inhaling, coming back to center. Exhaling, folding over that front foot and walking the hands out towards the right side of the mat, planting the hands and releasing the head here, feeling a bit of a stretch in that left side of the lower back. Inhaling, walking the hands back to center. Exhaling here for a moment, finding some length through the spine. On your next inhalation, stepping back for a plank or half plank or all fours to suit you. Finding length in the body here, engaging that core, engaging those glutes. On your next exhalation, dropping the knees, lowering slowly down to the mat. Bringing the forehead down too. Inhaling, coming up into a baby cobra, really squeezing the shoulder blades down your back, squeezing the elbows in, keeping those glutes active to protect the lower back. Exhaling, releasing back down to the mat. Inhaling, tucking the toes, pushing up halfway. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Breathing here, nice and deeply, connecting to your breath. On your next inhalation, sending that right foot back behind you, toes pointing down towards the mat, softening that right hip, right pelvis down. Exhaling, seeing if you can step it up to that right hand, dropping that left knee, helping it up if you can. Coming all the way up into your low lunge on this side. Again, bringing your right hand down to your right hip, left arm up overhead. Just exhaling over towards the right this time, opening up that body, really squeezing that left glute even more just to open up that left hip. Inhaling, coming back to center. Exhaling, folding over that front foot, walking the hands around to the left side of your body now. Releasing here, just releasing the head, keeping those glutes active, feeling that stretch in the right side of your body. Always breathing. Inhaling, coming back to center. Exhaling, stepping back into your plank. Pausing here for a breath, generating some heat. Keeping those glutes active, stretching out the front of the hips a little even here. And then exhaling, either lowering through chaturanga down to the mat or lowering the knees first and slowly coming down onto your mat. Inhaling, lifting into baby cobra. Really trying to use your back muscles, maybe even floating your hands off the mat this time. Exhaling, releasing to the mat. Inhaling, tucking the toes, pushing up halfway. And exhaling, downward facing dog. Hopefully everyone's feeling nice and warm now. Breathing nice and deeply here. Again, pedaling out the feet if you need to. If you want to take a rest, you can also come into tabletop for this next bit or child's pose. Just going to find a bit of length through the spine wherever we are. Maybe just wiggle our tailbone side to side. Just noticing a little bit of movement in the side body. Breathing nice and deeply. And then inhaling, either coming up into tabletop or down dog for this next one. As we exhale, we'll let the knees fall over, the heels fall over to the left. Dip the hips down and open up that right side. Inhale, come back to center. And exhale, let the heels fall over to the right. Let the hips drop slightly, open up that left side. Inhale, come back to center. Lovely. Exhale, release here for a moment. Inhale, lift that left leg up behind you. And exhale, see if we can step it up towards the left hand. Drop that right knee down. Come up into your low lunge. Again, get those glutes active, that body strong. And then see if we can just pop up into a crescent lunge as we inhale, lifting that back knee. Lovely. You can keep that back knee bent a little if you want to. And just becoming really aware of your pelvis here, making sure we're not arching the lower back. So trying to just keep that pelvis stacked under our body. Pausing here for another breath. And then on your next inhalation, seeing if we can step forward and lift that right leg up in front of us. Don't worry if you wobble. If you need to hold on to something, that's fine too. And then exhale, see if we can step it back behind us, nice and slowly touch it down for a crescent lunge. Lovely control. Inhale, lift that right leg up and out in front of us. Keep that core active, those ribs going towards each other. Exhale, step it back behind you for a crescent lunge. You can either continue doing this might feel enough for you, or as you inhale, you can step that right foot forward again. And then as you exhale, we can come into a warrior three, being really careful to keep that pelvis neutral. So hinging from the hips, lifting that right leg with that right glute, toes pointing down towards the mat. You can bend that left knee a little. Find length here. Inhaling, bringing that right knee forward. Maybe exhaling back into a warrior three again. Or a crescent lunge if you prefer. Lovely guys, lovely control. Once more, inhaling, bringing that right leg forward. Exhaling, warrior three or crescent lunge. Hinging at the hips, keeping that core active and engaged. Really using that right glute to lift that right leg. Once more, inhaling, right leg forward. Hopefully that left leg's working quite hard now. You can rest if you need to. Then without using your hands, we're going to externally rotate that right leg out to the side. So keep your hands on your hips. Just really notice that right leg externally rotating. We're going to come into tree pose now, but instead of using your hand to pull it up your leg, see if you can just find the place it naturally lands, making sure we avoid that knee. Breathing nice and deeply, pausing here for a few moments, opening up that hip, finding that balance and stability in the left side and the left hip, keeping those glutes active. Lovely. And then inhaling, bringing that right leg back in front of us, and exhaling, stepping the right foot back behind us, dropping that right heel down to the mat and opening up for a warrior two on this side. Really reaching to either end of the mat here, right foot's at about a 45-degree angle to the back of the mat, bending into that left knee. Bring your hands to heart center if that's better for you. Inhaling, reaching forward slightly, flipping that left hand up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, reversing your warrior, opening up that left side. One more inhalation here. And then exhaling, windmilling the hands to frame that front foot, lifting the right heel off the mat, planting the right hand, and inhaling the left arm up. Either staying here, or if you want a bit more, you can roll onto the outside edge of your right foot. And as you exhale, just lower your right hip down towards the ground. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, release that left hand down to the mat and step back for a plank. Inhale here. And then exhale, lower down to the mat. Untuck the toes, draw the shoulders away from your ears and inhale up into a cobra. Exhale, lower. And inhale, tuck the toes, push up halfway. And exhale, downward facing dog or child's pose or tabletop. Breathing nice and deeply here, maybe taking some deep breaths in through the nose, sighing it out through the mouth. Softening the face and the neck, making sure your neck's free, not holding any tension. And on your next inhalation, we'll lift that right leg up behind us. And step the right foot up between the hands for the same sequence on this side, dropping that left knee. Inhaling up into a low lunge again, activating that left glute, opening up the left side of the hip, breathing nice and deeply. Gathering that energy together, and then as we inhale, seeing if we can step up into a crescent lunge, keeping that form. Lovely. Lovely. Finding a little more length as we inhale. Exhaling, rooting through that right foot. On your next inhalation, stepping forward, lifting that left leg, driving it up in front of you. Exhaling, stepping back with control for another crescent lunge. Inhaling, driving it forward. Exhaling, stepping it back. Lovely. Inhaling, driving it forward. And this time you can step back into another crescent lunge or extend your left leg out behind you, hinge from the hips, come into your warrior three. Really using that left glute to lift the leg, pausing here. Inhaling, bringing that left leg forward. Exhaling, sending it behind you, warrior three, hinging at the hips, keeping that core active, softening that left side of the pelvis so it's level. Inhaling, lifting that left leg forward. Exhaling, warrior three, last warrior three. Then inhaling, bringing that left leg forward. And this time as we exhale, opening it up to the left for a tree pose on this side, planting that left foot on the right leg, really squeezing right leg and left foot together, finding more length, finding that stability in the right hip and that openness in the left hip. Breathing, smiling, softening those shoulders. One more breath here. And inhaling, bringing that left leg back out in front of you. Exhaling, stepping it back behind you, dropping that left foot down to the mat. Warrior two on this side. Lovely. Breathing nice and deeply. Pausing here, connecting to your breath. Feeling that openness in the hips here in our warrior two. Inhaling, reaching forward, flipping the right hand up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, reversing our warrior, reaching up and out through those right fingertips. Softening that left side down. One more inhalation here. Then exhaling, windmilling the hands to frame that front foot, lifting that left heel off the mat, and inhaling the right arm up for a twisted runner's lunge on this side. Either staying here or rolling over onto the outside edge of that left foot. As we exhale, softening that left hip down to the mat. Inhaling it up. Exhaling, softening it down. Inhaling up. Exhaling, softening it down. Inhaling, lifting it up. Exhaling, bringing the right hand down and stepping back into a plank. Pausing here, taking that nice deep breath in, finding that length in the body. Then exhaling, lowering down to the mat. And inhaling, coming up into a cobra pose, really using those glutes. Exhaling, lowering back down to the mat. Then inhaling, tucking the toes, pushing up halfway. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Good job, breathing here, nice and deeply. Again, always taking that rest pose if you want to, or doing something else if that's what you prefer. Just listening to your body. Maybe taking a moment to check the insides of your elbows are facing either each other or the top of the mat. Finding that support in the shoulders here. One more deep breath in here. So if you can lift the tailbone a little higher. And then exhaling, rolling forward onto all fours. Keeping that length in the spine. Breathing. We'll take a few moments now just to do some internal rotation in the hips. So we're going to just walk the feet out either side of us, one at a time. So just keeping the breath nice and slow, just seeing if we can walk those feet out, keeping the knees where they are, keeping that spine, that pelvis completely still, keeping that core active, breathing nice and deeply. Just trying to move the hips with control here. And then the next time your left foot is out beside you, just keep it there. And as we inhale, we'll bring the right foot so it's parallel to the left foot, crossing the right edge of our mat. So it's kind of like a low lunge to the right side of the mat. Plant that left hand and inhale the right arm up, opening up the body here. Take a nice deep breath here. And then exhaling, releasing that right hand down to the mat. And coming back to all fours. Sweeping the right foot off the mat this time, so in internal rotation. Bringing the left foot into external rotation, so low lunge facing the opposite direction. Planting that right hand, we'll inhale the left arm up, really opening up this side, softening the head and the neck, breathing. Lovely. Your next exhalation, releasing that left hand back down to the mat and coming back into all fours. Taking a moment to set up your base here, breathing into this pose, finding that length. And then inhaling, lifting the right leg up behind us for a donkey kick. So really using that right glute to lift that leg, bending the knee, keeping that core active. And then exhaling, rounding the back, bringing the knee underneath you, finding some cat pose. And seeing if you can step the right foot through. So we're crossing it over our left leg. So it looks like this. We've got a figure 4 pose here in our all fours. Lovely. If you can't quite do that, don't worry. You can just bring it out to the side. Then we'll take a few rounds of cat-cow here. So as we inhale, drop the tummy, lift the crown of the head and the tailbone. As we exhale, round the back, hopefully feeling a nice stretch in the outside of that right hip. On your next inhalation, coming back to a neutral spine. And then exhaling, releasing that right foot back behind you, back to all fours. Inhaling, lifting that left leg. Donkey kick on this side, really using that left glute to lift that leg, keeping that pelvis nice and neutral, trying to imagine you have a block that you're balancing here and you can't move it. Exhaling, rounding the back, drawing that knee underneath you and seeing if we can cross it over the right foot. Lovely. Taking a few rounds of cat-cow on this side. Breathing nice and deeply. One more breath here. Then inhaling, drawing that knee back underneath you, and exhaling, releasing back into all fours. You can always come up onto your fists if you get sore wrists at any point throughout today. Then we'll extend the right leg out behind us again and bend the knee, lifting up into that donkey kick. Exhaling, rounding the back, drawing it underneath us, crossing that leg. So we're coming back into that figure four position and seeing if we can roll down onto the right side of our body, twisting over towards the right and releasing here. Inhaling, coming back to center, walking back out into that all fours at the figure four. Unraveling that right leg and extending the right leg nice and long, sweeping that left foot off the mat so it crosses the long edge. Planting that left hand, we'll inhale, sweep the arm up for a gate pose variation. Really squeezing the glutes, opening at that right side of the body. Pausing here, breathing. Then exhaling, releasing that right hand back down, right knee back down. And exhaling, finding that length in the spine here. Inhaling, extending that left leg. And again, bending the knee, coming up into that donkey pose, donkey kick pose. Exhaling, rounding the back, drawing the knee underneath you, seeing if you can cross that leg over. And then coming back to sit on that left side. Releasing over towards the left and folding over here. Inhaling, coming back into your all fours. And exhaling, extending that left leg out long, sweeping the right leg off to the side. Inhaling the left arm up for a gate pose variation here. Releasing that head down. Trying not to hold any tension. Squeezing the glutes, opening up the front of the hip. Exhaling, releasing that left hand down and coming back into all fours. Bringing the knees, the feet together now, the knees nice and wide, just sinking back for a moment into child's pose, taking a moment to rest, take the pressure off your hands, maybe reach forward. If you need to take a glass of water or anything like that, just taking a moment to look after your body, notice anything it might need. Breathing nice and deeply. Your next inhalation, rolling forward into all fours, tucking the toes, and exhaling, downward facing dog. Lifting that tailbone. Again, don't worry about where your heels get to here. Just trying to glue the tummy towards the upper thighs. Then we'll inhale, extend that left leg out behind us. And exhale, step the left foot forward. Drop the knee and come up into our low lunge again. Lovely. And again, bringing that awareness to the right glute, opening up that right hip flexor. Inhaling, seeing if we can step up into a crescent lunge. And exhaling, bringing both feet to face the right hand edge of the mat. So we're coming into a wide-legged stance here. Exhaling, bending into that right hip, coming over into a side lunge on the right side, releasing the hands to the ground. Pausing here for a breath. And then inhaling, walking the hands over to the other side, bending into that left knee and coming into a side lunge on this side. Inhaling, moving the hips over. So we're bending into the right knee, but keeping the hands over towards the left. So we're really opening up this adductor in the side of the thigh. Breathing nice and deeply, trying to think about sitting backwards. And then walking the hands over to the right side and bending the left knee, so we're stretching the opposite direction here. Really sinking back into that tailbone, reaching over with the right. Lovely. Twisting round to face the back of the mat now and dropping the knee. We'll come into a low lunge on this side. Planting the left hand, we'll inhale the right arm up. Then exhale, release that right hand. We'll see if we can come down to sit on the left side, outside edge of the left thigh. So we'll move the left hip across, seeing if we can sit down. If this feels a bit much, just extending that right leg out in front of you, if not coming into a twisted pose. So you want to have your left leg bent, your right leg either stepped across it or straightened out in front of you. And then holding on to that right leg, got myself confused, we'll twist over towards that side, breathing nice and deeply, trying to find that length in the spine. And one more inhalation here. And then exhaling, seeing if we can unwind all the way back round to face the front of the mat. Plant the hands and step back into a downward facing dog. Good job, guys, well done. And then we'll inhale, lift the right leg this time. And exhale, step the right foot forward. Drop that left knee and come into a low lunge on this side. Again, engaging that left glute to open up that left hip flexor. Inhale, coming up into a crescent lunge. Nice bit of strength work for our hips there. Exhaling, opening up to the left side of the mat, bringing both feet to face that left edge. And bending into this left knee, sinking the tailbones back, really finding that flexion in the hips, maybe releasing the hands down to the mat. Pausing here, keeping that length in the spine. Inhaling, coming back through center, walking the hands across. Exhaling, bending into that right side. Inhaling, lifting that pelvis through center, bending into the left knee, but releasing the hands over towards the right, really stretching out the inside of our right leg. This feels a bit much, you can come up onto your tiptoes, tops of your fingertips, sorry, tiptoes. And then inhaling, coming back through center, walking the hands over to the other side and bending into that right knee, stretching out the left side, really getting it into our adductors here. Walking the hands round to face the back of the mat, dropping that right knee. So low lunge to this side. And then we're going to keep trying to sink down onto the outside edge of that right leg. So you might want to sink your weight back a bit first before you cross over. You might want to extend that left leg out. But we're going to come down into a seated position. Right leg is bent and left leg is over the top, either bent or extended out in front of you. Holding on to your left leg with your right hand, twisting open towards your left. Breathing nice and deeply here, finding that length through the spine. And then as you inhale, see if you can untwist all the way back round to that long edge of the mat. So not going all the way to the front this time. And keep your feet pointing to the top corners or the corners of the mat. So our legs are slightly externally rotated. Bending in the knees. See if you can inhale, come up into our goddess pose. This is quite a good hip opener and strengthener. So trying to tuck the tailbone under slightly slightly here to really engage that core. So we don't want to be sticking our bum out behind us, keeping that core active and engaged, finding that length through the spine, softening the shoulders. We'll inhale, extend the right arm up, and exhale over towards the left, opening up the right side, staying strong. You can come out and rest from this pose if you want to, just by straightening your legs. Inhaling, coming back to center. Exhaling, releasing that right arm. Inhaling the left arm and exhaling over towards the right. Keeping those hips strong, really pushing through the outside edges of the feet. Imagine you're on a piece of paper and you're trying to, or you're on your mat and you're trying to tear it apart. Get that energy going. Hopefully. Inhaling, coming back to center. Exhaling, releasing. Inhaling, straightening the legs. That feels good. Bring both feet to face the edge of the mat so they're parallel now. Taking a moment here, maybe taking a sip of water, doing whatever you need to do. And then on your next inhalation, going to send our weight over towards the left. See if you can hop that right foot over and just lift it up off the mat. Going to come into an eagle pose here, or an eagle variation. So if you know what you're doing, you can crack on. Otherwise, we're going to bring our right leg to cross in front of our left leg, really squeezing those inner thighs together, squeezing those adductors, keeping that tailbone from flaring out behind us. And then bending that left knee, maybe twisting that right foot round the back of our left calf for an eagle pose. This is a really good one for strengthening the insides of our legs, as well as a bit of balance. If this feels a bit much, you can bring your right foot down to the mat, hold onto something. That's all, they're all good options. And just breathe here for a moment. If you can find that balance, squeeze those inner thighs together. And then inhale, unravel. Step the right foot out as we exhale, bend into that right knee for a side lunge. Inhale, seeing if you can hop back over to that left foot with control, not like me, and then come back into your eagle pose. Inhale, unravel. Exhale, step it out. And then this time, seeing if you can inhale, open up that left leg out to the side. Lovely. Exhale, release that left leg. Shift the weight over. Eagle pose. Lovely. Inhale, unravel. Exhale, step the right foot out, bend the knee. Inhale, the left leg up. Exhale, down. Step it over. Eagle pose. See if you can do that in time to your own breath, or in time to whatever feels good for you. So seeing if you can go a bit faster, a bit slower, mixing it up. Lovely. Really nice. And the next time you step into your right-sided side lunge, just pause there. We'll inhale, step that left foot, and we'll do the same on this side. So see if we can come into an eagle pose on this side, twisting that left leg over the top of our right leg, bending the knee and sinking down, engaging that core, keeping ourselves nice and active. Lovely. Inhaling, unraveling. Exhaling, stepping out, bending into that left knee. Inhaling, coming back across. Twisting that left leg over the top of the right leg and coming into our eagle pose. Don't worry if you wobble. You can see I'm wobbling too. Inhaling, unraveling. Exhaling, stepping it out. And inhaling, lifting that right leg. Lovely. Exhaling, stepping that right leg out. Bending into the knee. Inhaling the left leg over the top for eagle pose. Lovely. Good job, guys. Exhaling, stepping that left leg out. Inhaling the right leg up. Exhaling, stepping it down. Inhaling, eagle pose. Continuing in time to your own breath. You might find one side it's a bit more wobbly than the other. This is my more wobbly side. So don't worry if you find that. Lovely. Nice, guys. This is really good for working our adductors, our abductors, keeping our hips moving nice and well. Lovely. Next time you step your left leg out and bend the knee, just inhale, come back to a nice wide-legged stance. Lovely. Reach up to the ceiling with our fingertips. Squeeze those glutes to open up the front of the body a bit. And exhale, fold forward. Just release here in a wide-legged forward fold. Wherever you are. Breathing nice and deeply. Just reconnecting to your breath, breathing into that back body. Your next inhalation, just lifting up slightly and walking your hands back round to the front of the mat, stepping both feet back into a plank or all fours or whatever you like. Inhaling here, and then exhaling, lowering down to the mat and coming up into cobra on your next inhalation. Maybe seeing if you can lift a little further up here, always keeping those glutes nice and active, using your back muscles, releasing your shoulders away from your ears. Exhaling, releasing down to the mat, pausing for a moment here. And then on your next inhalation, tucking the toes, pushing up halfway, exhaling, downward facing dog. Almost there, guys, you're doing fab. Breathing nice and deeply. One more deep breath in here. And then as you exhale, releasing down into all fours. We've got another little sequence here that you can do at your own pace in a moment. So we'll go through it together and then you can see how you get on. So we'll plant our right hand down, plant our right knee down. And it's up to you if you want to untuck or tuck your toes. You can also sweep your right foot off the mat for a bit more stability. So the closer in line with your hand it is and your knee, the more challenging this balance is. We'll inhale, extend that left leg. Exhale, seeing if we can open up the hips here. Maybe bring the hand to the hips. Push down through that right leg and float that left leg off the mat. Maybe inhale the arm up for supported half moon pose. And we'll exhale, release that left hand down. Step the left foot forward for our low lunge. Inhale, tuck the toes and drop the heel. So we're coming into a warrior pose. Sweep the arms up overhead for a warrior two. Pause here for breath. And then exhale, windmill the hands to frame that front foot. Plant the left hand a little bit further in front of that left foot. So about about hand's distance away. And then inhale, see if we can lift that right leg up off the mat, opening up the hips to the right side of the room. You can either release both hands down to the mat and just fold here, opening up the right side, or you can see if you can inhale the right arm up as well for a half moon pose. Exhaling, releasing the right hand, releasing the right foot, coming back into our low lunge. Lovely. Planting that right hand, extending that left leg. Maybe inhaling that left arm for supported half moon. Lovely, guys. Exhaling, releasing the left hand, left foot up to meet the left hand. Inhaling, warrior two. Exhaling, windmilling the hands to frame that front foot, planting the left hand, lifting up into a half moon pose. Exhaling, releasing the right hand, the right foot for a low lunge, planting that right hand. Inhaling the left leg, left arm up, supported half moon, which is actually just as challenging. The name is deceiving. See if you can continue in time to your own breath. I'll continue as well. But see if you can just play around, maybe not even in time to your own breath. Just see if you can move between the poses and get your brain, your hips working. Don't worry if you feel a bit confused. That's okay. It's good for us. Lovely, guys. The next time you're in a low lunge, just pausing there, dropping the knee, planting that right hand, and inhaling the left arm up for a small twist. Releasing the head, being careful not to hold tension here. Lovely. Exhaling, releasing that left hand, placing the left knee back to meet the right knee, all fours. We'll give the same thing a go on the other side. So this is when it can get confusing if one side feels different to the other. So again, remembering you can sweep that left foot off the mat this time if you need a bit more stability, especially in supported half moon. Extending the right leg, opening up the hips to the right side, floating that right leg off the mat, and maybe extending that right arm. Exhaling, releasing the right hand, stepping the right foot forward for a low lunge on this side. Inhaling, tucking the toes and dropping that heel. Warrior two. Lovely. Pausing here for a breath. And then on your next exhalation, windmilling the hands to frame that front foot, placing that right hand just a bit in front of that right foot. And as you inhale, see if you can float that left leg off the mat. Maybe inhaling the left arm too. Lovely. Exhaling, releasing that left hand, the left foot, low lunge. Planting that left hand, extending that right leg, extending the right arm, supported half moon pose. Exhaling, releasing the right hand, right foot. Inhaling, warrior two. Lovely. Exhaling, windmilling the hands to frame that front foot, planting the right hand, lifting that left leg, lifting the left arm, half moon pose. Lovely. Exhaling, releasing that left hand, left foot, extending the right leg long, right arm up, supported half moon pose. Exhaling, releasing the right hand, right foot. Inhaling, warrior two. Really trying to keep your glutes and your core active throughout this sequence. Exhaling, windmilling the hands to frame that front foot, planting the right hand, lifting the left leg. Inhaling, half moon. Just continuing in time to your own breath, having a go. Don't worry if it feels hard. It is hard. Don't worry if it feels a bit strange. Just noticing your body move. Remembering it's only yoga, it doesn't really matter anyway. And the next time you come into a low lunge, just staying there, bringing the right foot back to meet the left, and coming into all fours. Bring the knees nice and wide, feet together, just sinking back for a moment into a wide-legged child's pose. Pausing, breathing. You can always make a little pillow for your head with your hands here, using your fists or your hands. And just breathing nice and deeply, breathing into those hips. They've done well. We've worked them hard, strengthening and stretching, moving them in all different ways. Just taking a moment to appreciate your hips, all the movements they help you to do. In fact, they support us in standing and sitting and everything in between. And on your next inhalation, just coming up to seated, just come into a pigeon pose variation. So if you want to take full pigeon here or any variation of pigeon that you're used to, that's completely fine. I'm going to just show us a slight alternative. So we're going to come and rest on the right side of, or the outside edge of our right thigh and on our right buttock now. And we're going to bring our right foot out. So we can either keep it tucked in, bending the knees quite a lot, or we can bring it out to up to a 90-degree angle. So what we kind of are aiming for is a right angle in that front leg, and then a right angle in our hips, and a right angle in that back leg. So we're full of right angles, full of those 90 degrees. So our left leg comes out behind us. And then we'll inhale, turn to face that right hip, that right thigh. So we're looking over our right thigh, just keeping the feet nice and active. And then as you exhale, just walking the hands forward, maybe softening over that right hip, that right thigh, that right leg, and just breathing nice and deeply here. If that doesn't feel good for you, you can stay upright. Like I said, if you want to take a kind of more traditional pigeon, that's fine too. Just breathing nice and deeply wherever you are. We'll just pause here for a few breaths. This is a really good one, especially if you run or you do lots of walking or cycling. It can feel a bit gentler on the knees and the hips than a traditional pigeon pose. Don't worry if your body feels full of energy, just allowing it to be there. We're just trying to breathe nice and deeply and slowly. And on your next inhalation, lifting up to seated, and just lifting both knees as you exhale, coming onto the back of your sit bones, just windmilling the feet side to side for a moment, using your hands to support you. Lovely. And we'll do the same on the other side. So bringing the weight onto your left side, your left thigh, your left hip. Bring the right leg out beside us for a bit of support. Finding those nice right angles in all parts of our body. Turning our body to face the left side this time, over the top of our left hip, left thigh. And then inhaling, finding that length before exhaling, folding over that left side. And again, if it doesn't feel good for you to fold over, just staying upright, always tuning into your body and really trying to honor what it needs today. Breathing nice and deeply and slowly. And on your next inhalation, just coming back up to seated again. Again, lifting both legs, bringing them out in front of you and just windmilling them side to side, smiling. And then we'll come onto our backs now. Just release down onto the mat. And just hug our knees in. Squeeze them in. Rock side to side. If you want to take happy baby here, you can. So you can bring your first 2 fingers around the first toe. Just wrap the fingers around and draw the knees either side of you. Just rock and rolling side to side. Breathing nice and deeply. Smiling too. You are a happy baby after all. And then releasing your feet, squeezing your knees in once more. If you want to take any other poses quickly, you can. Anything that you feel you've missed today. And then we'll come into a Shavasana pose. So that's just a resting pose. So if you want to grab yourself a pillow or a cushion to go under your head, you can, or a blanket, although it's quite warm today, so you maybe don't need that. But when you're ready, when you've found things to make yourself nice and comfortable, you can just bring your legs out nice and long, just letting your feet roll out to the sides. Bring your hands down either side of you, roll your shoulders underneath you. Breathing nice and deeply here. If you feel any tension on your lower back, just bringing your knees back up towards the ceiling, soles of the feet to the ground, and just letting your knees, fall in to support one another. When you're ready and you're comfortable, and you've made any last adjustments, just rolling your shoulders underneath you, bringing your hands out to the sides, and drawing your eyes to a close, drawing your attention inwards. Really noticing how your body feels. Noticing how your hips feel. Trying to let go of any judgment there. And just noticing, being the observer of your body. And noticing your breath. And taking a few deep inhalations, maybe through the nose. And a few long exhalations, maybe through the mouth. And then when you're ready, just allowing your breath to return to its natural cycle. Letting go of any control over it. And just allowing it to flow in and out of your body. With every inhalation, finding a sense of openness and growth. With every exhalation, a feeling of deep relaxation and peacefulness. With every exhalation, just allowing any tension in your body to slip away. Letting every part of you relax. Your feet, your legs, your hips, your hands, your arms, your shoulders. Allowing your whole torso to soften, your neck, and your head. Just letting every part of you melt a little further into the earth. Letting go of any tension in your forehead and in your jaw. And allowing your whole face to soften. Finding a sense of being connected and grounded. And allowing everything to be just as it is. Staying in this state for a few more minutes. Just allowing your body and mind a few moments of stillness. Some time to absorb the effects and benefits of this practice today. If any thoughts float in, just allowing them to float out again. Always coming back to the breath, flowing in and out of your body. Still keeping your eyes closed, just bringing a bit of awareness back into your body, moving your fingers and your toes, stretching your arms up overhead for a full body stretch. Releasing the arms back down beside you, drawing your knees up towards the ceiling, soles of the feet to the ground. Maybe just moving them side to side a little. And slowly rolling over onto one side. Making a little pillow for your head with your hands here. Taking a moment of pause here. And slowly making your way up to a seated position. Bringing your hands to heart center. Moving your hands together to generate some heat. And then placing them over your eyes. Just allowing your eyes to open gently as you bring your hands back to heart center. Namaste.